Now we're going to move on to comparing irrational numbers. So let's have an example like, let's compare the square root of 14 with the fourth root of 32. And we want to know, is that greater than, less than, equal to? So why don't you pause the video and give it a try yourselves and then come back. All right, so we're going to approach this just like we did with the other problems. So first, we're going to approximate the square root of 14. So I think that's going to be between 3 and 4. So let's just check. 3 squared is 9, and 4 squared is 16. And 14 is between those two numbers. So we know that the square root of 14 is going to be between 3 and 4. So now we'll put 9 and 16 here since they're the squares of the two numbers up top. And we can put 14 on the number line. And that's going to be closer to 16 than it is going to be to 9. So we know that the square root of 14 is going to be closer to 4 than it is going to be to 3. So approximating to the nearest whole number is going to be about 4. And we're just going to move on to the fourth root of 32, and if necessary, we can always go down and approximate the numbers to the nearest half. So the fourth root of 32, I think that might be between 2 and 3. I'm not too sure though, so let's test them out. So 2 to the fourth is going to be 16, and 3 to the fourth is going to be 9 times 9 equals 81. So 32 is between these two numbers, so we know that the fourth root of 32 is going to be between 2 and 3. And just like before, we'll put the powers on the bottom. And as we can see, 32 is right about here, which is going to be closer to 16 than it is to 81. So we know that the fourth root of 32 is going to be closer to 2 than it is going to be to 3. So approximating this, it's going to be roughly 2 to the nearest whole number. So let me just write here, it's approximately 2. And here, this is approximately 4. So just based on rounding to the nearest whole number, we can tell that the square root of 14 is going to be greater than the fourth root of 32. But if the two numbers were similar, you could always approximate down to the half like we did in the earlier examples. Next, we're going to compare rational numbers. So we just did irrational numbers like radicals, and now we're going to move on to rational numbers, which are numbers that you can write as a fraction, as we were talking about in the beginning of the video. So let's just, for example, have 4 and 16 over 3. So we want to know if 4 is less than, greater than, or equal to 16 over 3. So in order to compare rational numbers, there's two very common ways. The first one is going to be finding a common denominator between the two. So 4 can also be written as 4 over 1, which has a denominator of 1. So if we multiply by 3 over 3, which simplifies down to 1, so you're technically just multiplying it by 1. That would be 12 over 3. So now we can compare 12 over 3 with 16 over 3, and they have the same denominator. So now it's very easy to see that 12 is less than 16, so 12 over 3 is going to be less than 16 over 3. So now, moving on to the second common way, I think this is a lot easier. It's a little trick for you. If we just write 4 with the denominator, it'll be easier to visualize. So we're going to kind of draw a line up. a diagonal arrow on both sides, crossing the middle, and we're going to multiply up. So 4 times 3 is going to be 12, and 1 times 16 is going to be 16. So we basically did the same thing as we did when we found the common denominator, except this is just simpler and faster. So this number represents 4, and this number represents 16 over 3. So we can compare these two numbers that I've circled, and we can tell that 16 is less, we can tell that 12 is less than 16, so that means that 4 is going to be less than 16 over 3, which we also found by doing our common denominator method. Alright, so that's it for this video, and if you feel like you need just a little bit more practice, I have a couple practice problems for you going over what we just covered in the video, and I hope you have a great day.